Well, that was fast.
Do you even realize how lucky you are to be alive right now? To exist at the same time as Concord. You are alive at a time that people will talk about for centuries to come. You get to witness the biggest failure in gaming. Not only the biggest failure in gaming, but undoubtedly one of the biggest failures in all of entertainment.
Nomad sent it to me and I replied back. I said, I used to pray for times like these. It's crazy. Yep, it's dead. It's actually fucking dead.
So Concord fans, you know, I hate how they're using fans in the plural sense. You know, I went to English class. Plural means more than one, Sony, and I don't even think there was a Concord fan, all right?
This is the news, and unbelievable. 8 years of development time, millions upon millions of dollars thrown into a project that got shut down in 2 weeks. That's unheard of. That's a unprecedented level of failure.
And when you're like pillar of decision making, yes, our pillar of decision making is we hope people like it and spend lots of money.
Apparently that 25,000 number, that's not the Steam. That's the PlayStation 5 up on there and putting it in. What?
It's just not a good game, and it's a game nobody wanted. That is the problem of the people that brainstormed this, greenlight this, and then made the team work on it. So whoever came up with those ideas and pushed all this forward, those are the ones that are responsible for the tragedy that is Concord.
You know, any other IP that I've seen launch multiplayer-wise has done far more successfully by a wide, multiple amounts of margins as compared to something like this. Insane failure.
But let me know, are you going to be playing Concord, or are you going to go play Black Myth Wukong and other games that are, what's the word? It's that word Jim Ryan never can remember. Oh, fun. Yeah, fun games.
Concord. Just the name itself once carried the weight of a dream, a promise, a game born not out of chance but out of purpose. It wasn't supposed to be like all the others. No, Concord was built to defy the inevitable, to stand proof that unity could endure, that ambition could rise without faltering under its own weight. For a time, it worked. For a time, it was everything its founders imagined it could be. But standing here now, with the echoes of the past fading into silence, you can't help but ask, what went wrong? How does a place so full of hope, so driven by ideals, fall so utterly apart? It wasn't just one thing. No, the downfall of Concord wasn't just a single shattering moment. It was a slow unraveling of a delicate thread pulled too tight until it snapped. To understand its fall, you have to look deeper. Peel back the layers of promises made and broken. Follow the lines of ambition, twisted and knotted over time. It's a story of visionaries who lost their way, of alliances built on fragile foundations, and of a dream that grew too large for those tasked with holding it together. But how did Concord fail? For that, we have to go to the beginning. Only then we can make sense of what's left, and what it all means for the rest of us. Fireworks Studios was founded in 2018 with big ambitions. Based in Bellevue, Washington, the studio brought together a group of seasoned developers who had worked on some of the biggest multiplayer hits in gaming, like Destiny, Call of Duty, and Apex Legends. The team's goal was straightforward but bold, to create multiplayer games that weren't just fun but deeply engaging and connected players in meaningful ways. From the outset, Fireworks set its sights on creating something truly special. The studio was a part of Probably Monsters, a collective of independent game studios designed to support developers with such things like financing, HR, and legal needs. This setup allowed Fireworks to focus on what it did best: making games. With this strong foundation, the team began to work on what would eventually become their flagship project, Concord, a multiplayer hero shooter with big ideas and even bigger expectations. Their partnership with Sony Interactive Entertainment began early on, but in April of 2023, Sony went all in and acquired Fireworks Studios outright. Sony saw Fireworks as a key part of its push into live service games and gave the team access to top-tier resources and technology. Fireworks' goal was ambitious, to create a game that could stand alongside cultural icons like Star Wars. And we know how that went. They spent years crafting Concord, determined to deliver a game that would resonate with players worldwide. But despite the talent and resources behind it, Fireworks' journey was far from smooth. Reports later emerged about internal challenges, including a culture of toxic positivity where critical feedback was downplayed or ignored. This environment made it harder for the team to address problems during development, and those issues eventually caught up with the project. When Concord launched on August 23rd of 2024, things went downhill fast. Reviews were mixed, player engagement was dismal, and sales were shockingly low. And just 2 weeks later, the game was shut down, and all purchases were being refunded. On October 29th of 2024, Sony announced that Firewalk Studios was closing, bringing an abrupt and disappointing end to a studio that had started with so much promise. It shows how even the most talented teams and well-funded projects can struggle to deliver in an industry where expectations are sky high. While Firewalk's time was cut short, its vision and the effort behind it won't be forgotten. It's a reminder of how difficult it is to make something truly great in the world of multiplayer gaming. But with all this being said, what was Concord in the first place? Concord was a multiplayer first-person hero shooter developed by Firewalk Studios and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. Released on August 23, 2024 for PlayStation 5 and Windows. The game was set in a retro-futuristic sci-fi world populated by humans and humanoid aliens. Players took on roles of mercenaries battling in teams, with gameplay centered on capturing objectives and leveraging unique character abilities. Concord was a sci-fi player-versus-player hero shooter played from a first-person perspective. Players could select from a roster of alien characters, each with unique abilities such as robotic legs for high jumps, or diamond skin for enhanced damage absorption. One of the factions in the game, known as the Free Gunners, were mercenaries and a central part of the game's narrative. At launch, the game included 16 playable characters, with plans for free updates to introduce more characters, maps, and weekly cutscenes that would expand on the story. However, these plans were obviously abandoned due to the game's abrupt shutdown. Meanwhile, the game's development cost sparked intense debate after podcast host Colin Moriarty claimed Concord had a $400 million budget. This figure, however, was widely criticized. Christopher Dring, head of GameIndustry.biz, dismissed the claim as absurd, pointing out the game's lack of large-scale marketing. Similarly, Tom Warren, senior editor of The Verge, argued that the budget was implausible given Probably Monster's financial history. Journalist Jason Schreier urged skepticism, cautioning against trusting unverifiable figures from a single source. While the exact cost of Concord remains unclear, its failure highlighted the challenges of live service gaming and the risk of high-budget projects in a competitive market. Concord's shutdown just 2 weeks after release marked one of the fastest collapses in modern gaming history. Despite its promising concept and the talented team behind it, the game failed to resonate with anyone. But what was the true reason Concord failed? Well, Concord didn't crash and burn after a period of glory. It barely left the ground. From the start, the game struggled to generate excitement, its release landing with a dull thud rather than a triumphant roar. What was meant to be a groundbreaking new title was instead weighed down by a flawed vision that never resonated with players. The developers of Concord had ambitious ideas, a cooperative game that prioritized unity and collaboration over competition. On paper, it sounded innovative, but the execution revealed its shortcomings. The gameplay loop, meant to encourage teamwork and creative problem solving, felt restrictive and uninspired. The world of Concord was visually competent, but lacked the personality or depth to truly captivate players. This was especially at a time when the gaming landscape was crowded with bold, exciting releases. Concord offered little to stand out. Without any significant marketing push or compelling hook to draw in players, Concord released quietly, only with a handful of curious gamers picking it up. Word of mouth, instead of sparking interest, spread disappointment. Players criticized the game's slow pacing, repetitive mechanics, and lack of meaningful progression. For a game built on the idea of unity, Concord ironically failed to unite even a small community. The lack of initial success exposed deeper issues. The developer's vision, while noble, was disconnected from what the players wanted. They believed they were delivering something revolutionary, but they misread the market entirely. The mechanics felt forced, and the lack of competitive elements alienated many potential players. What might have thrived as a niche experience was instead pitched as a mainstream blockbuster, and the gap between intent and execution proved insurmountable. With no strong player base to sustain it, Concord floundered. Post-launch updates tried to address criticisms but only highlighted the game's lack of a solid foundation. The developers seemed unsure of how to adapt, caught between doubling down on their original vision and chasing trends to salvage the game, and neither approach worked. In the end, Concord wasn't undone by bugs, bad servers, or toxic monetization. Okay, maybe toxic monetization, but its failure was simpler. It didn't offer players a reason to care. The game's lack of hype was a symptom of a deeper problem, a flawed concept that never had the spark needed to succeed. And today, Concord is a little more than a footnote in gaming history, a reminder that even the boldest ambitions need a clear, compelling purpose to truly resonate with gamers today. The failure of Concord can largely be traced back to a combination of poor timing, lack of market demand, and insufficient promotion. The idea for Concord reportedly began forming as early as 2016, in the wake of Overwatch's groundbreaking success. Overwatch introduced the hero shooter genre to mainstream audiences, combining engaging characters, unique abilities, and fast-paced team gameplay. Inspired by this model, Firewalk Studios set out to create their own hero shooter, aiming to build a fresh, competitive multiplayer experience. However, the gaming landscape shifted dramatically in the years that followed, leaving Concord feeling outdated and out of touch by the time it launched. When Overwatch launched in 2016, it was a genre-defining moment, and many studios scrambled to capitalize on its success. Over the next few years, the market became saturated with hero shooters, many of which failed to capture the player interest or differentiate themselves from Overwatch. By the time Concord entered development, the genre's novelty was already wearing thin, and players were beginning to look for the next big innovation in multiplayer gaming. Fast forward to 2024, and the demand for hero shooters had dwindled significantly. Established games like Overwatch 2 and Fortnite dominated the market, while newer entries like Concord struggled to carve out a space. Concord's reliance on a now familiar formula, combined with the lack of a compelling hook, made it difficult to stand out. Players didn't just want another hero shooter, they wanted something that felt innovative or unique. And it's safe to say Concord failed to deliver on that front. Another major factor in Concord's failure was its lack of visibility. Even the best games need strong marketing campaigns to generate excitement and attract players. Concord, despite being positioned as a major live service title for Sony, was barely promoted in the months leading up to its release. A CGI trailer at the PlayStation Showcase in May of 2023, but it failed to convey anything that made the game special or why players should care in the first place. It left Concord without a clear identity or audience at all. Additionally, the beta released in July of 2024 and was met with minimal fanfare and low player engagement. Instead of building momentum for the game's launch, it highlighted the lack of interest and foreshadowed the game's eventual failure. By the time Concord launched in August, it felt like it had appeared out of nowhere with no established fanbase or excitement to sustain it. In contrast, Marvel Rivals, another hero shooter that debuted around the same time, thrived despite operating in the same genre. The key difference was the execution and audience appeal. Marvel Rivals had a significant advantage of being tied to the massively popular Marvel franchise. Players were already familiar with the characters, lore, and world, giving the game a built-in audience. The ability to play as iconic heroes like Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Black Widow made it an easy sell for fans of Marvel and action-packed multiplayer games alike. Also, if you play Jeff, I hate you so much. Marvel Rivals also capitalized on strong marketing. The game's promotional campaign included cinematic trailers, gameplay showcases, and collaborations with Marvel's exciting fan ecosystem, including tie-ins with the movies and comic events. This created widespread awareness and anticipation well before the launch. And on top of that, the game offered fresh mechanics and polished gameplay that made it feel like a meaningful evolution of the hero shooter genre, rather than just another clone of Overwatch. But when it comes to Concord's downfall, it was a case study in poor timing and missed opportunities. The idea of the game was conceived during the height of the hero shooter craze, but by the time it came to the market, the genre had evolved and players had moved on. Its lack of marketing and failure to offer a unique angle further doomed its chances. Meanwhile, Marvel Rivals succeeded by leveraging an established brand, delivering high-quality gameplay and building hype with a well-executed marketing campaign. With all this being said, we have to say we were a part of entertainment history, as Concord will go down as the worst piece of media to launch of all time. Its rapid failure from years of development and immense investment to its shutdown just 2 weeks after its release is unprecedented. It's a harsh lesson in how ambition, no matter how grand, can crumble without the right timing, marketing, or audience. At the very least, it's a story people will talk about for a long time, if only to ask, how did it go so wrong? But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell for future notifications if you do agree and enjoy the video as well. Concord is a very interesting case, and we can all finally say that we are a part of media history, with this being the greatest collapse we've ever seen. But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like I said, like, subscribe, and hit that bell for future notifications, and comment below your thoughts on Concord as well. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.